Okay.
Yay.
Thank you. So I think, we'll just try to deal with questions that folks have. And I see that Zoe's got, or is it Zoe or Zoe has their hand up. So let's take your question.
Yeah, hi. Can you hear me all right?
I can.
Great. Um, so I was reviewing the new exposure list, and yeah, it was quite a bit different from the prior. And I wanted to just double check. Really, what I wanted was an event, Eclipse feature event per shot. But from the chat, it you start at C2. Is that right? We start shooting at C2. Is that correct?
Yes.
Exposure list. Okay. And the exposures, I'm using backyard Nikon. So I run the exposures through, and it's capturing on my card. It's a little over a minute of exposures. Is that going to cover to C3? I think it might be a little shy.
Well, no. If you've done all of well, they haven't officially said it, but I'm assuming, depending on where you are for totality, if you got 3 or 4 minutes, depending on where you are, and if you've run through all of the shots, the multiple shots for each variation of exposure, and you've completed them, and you have time to repeat, you should repeat because the more data you collect, the better.
Yeah, but it would be at a different phase of the eclipse, so it wouldn't be the correct.
No, it all be true. It all be during totality. It doesn't make a difference when, as long as it's during totality, because it's the corona we're looking at. We
Yeah.
don't care
Yeah.
about the limb.
Yeah, it'll be fine. And so, yeah, I agree with Liam. Just if it's let it repeat, and the images should be, hopefully they'll be time stamped enough so that we have a good sense of exactly the timing. Although it's within 3 minutes, so totality at about the edge, depending on where you're at within the path of totality, it can
Yeah.
last somewhere around 2-ish minutes on the edges, up to a maximum of about 4.5 minutes in the very center line.
Yeah, I'm up. Well, fingers crossed. I'm up in Maine, so I have the shortest amount of totality. So I was a little concerned on when I start. So now I know it's just at C2, and then I just keep. If it finishes before C3, I'll just shoot it again. Is what you're saying?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I think, set I think the way I've always done it is you just set the sequence and then set the sequence to repeat.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I don't know if did you do it back in 2017 at all?
Oh well, not with this, but yeah, how I did it was so um um crazy. I mean, I just let the sun go. I didn't have a tracker. Now I have a tracker. So I let the sun just go through my frame, and then I moved it, and then it goes through my frame, and then but it was a nightmare to stack after that. But so
Yeah,
this is something different, and I just wanted to double check because I also want to be able to shoot the prior, the partials. So I'm gonna have to have multiple logs to be able to do this. So
yeah. I mean, so like what I did last time, and what I probably would do again, is I had a filter over the camera before before first contact, or before C2.
right.
And I started I can't remember how long before I had started the sequence, but I just let the sequence run.
Well,
And
Eclipse Orchestrator times it automatically, so it triggers at the right time for your location. So it's pretty much hands off, except taking the filter off
Yeah.
your scope.
Orchestrator or
yeah,
my
if you're using that kind of software, I was using I have a very old Canon, and I had to upload some specialized software in there in order to do my bracketing. So I just started it in its sequence of brackets and pulled off that. All I did was, a few seconds before C2, I just pulled that filter off and then let it go,
Right.
and didn't worry about it. Because I mean, this is the one thing that, I say this to public audiences, and I want you all to think about this too, is don't let the technology prevent you from enjoying the eclipse, right? And first and foremost, if it stops working, too bad. You need to watch that eclipse and enjoy it, right? So don't. There's enough people in this project that somebody's going to get the good data. So do the best you can, but don't be fiddling with that camera right before totality. Make sure that you just set it and go, and just set it on a repeat, and then we'll do what we can with the data afterward. I mean, I did the same thing as you last time. I let mine just float through the frame. I had a large enough frame so that I didn't have to worry about tracking. And then, yeah, stacking afterwards was, well, it wasn't the greatest, but it wasn't impossible.
No, it was fine. Now I have all the gear, so now probably it's going to be interesting. All right, that's what I needed to know. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So I was trying to figure out how many cycles through the gold standard I could get. And what I calculated was I could get, I'm trying to allow for the pause for the vibration from the mirror to settle down. And I figured that if I had a 1.2 second pause between exposures, I could get 3 cycles in. But I'm not sure whether I want to cut down to 1.2 seconds. Do you think that would be long enough?
Can you not set mirror lock during the bracketed exposures during totality? So each exposure level, you do it as a tick burst, and you set the burst to be how many shots, and then do a mirror lock for that, and then when you're done, let the mirror come down, and then when you go to the next exposure, wait 2 or 3 seconds, then open and do the next tick burst, like 5 images of whatever exposure level. And if you do the tick burst and do the mirror lock at each tick burst, I don't know if your camera can do it or not, but if you do that, the mirror will stay up. You'll take your shots, all of them, without putting the mirror down, and only when that run is over of 5 images or 10 images, whatever you want, it goes down. And then the next exposure level, mirror lock up again, do a take burst, and take a burst of 5 images or whatever number is needed in that exposure level, and repeat that each time. That way, then your mirror is not flapping up and down all the time.
Yeah, that would have to be programmed into the script, right?
Well, Eclipse Maestro and Eclipse Orchestrator both have that option.
Yeah, but I'm using Windows.
Yeah, Eclipse Orchestrator runs on Windows.
Okay.
Yeah, and so
but I'm not sure it'll work with the D3200.
Oh, it's a Nikon.
Yep.
No. See, the problem is the 3000 series are Nikon do not release the APIs or the SDKs to talk to those cameras. They only do for the higher end machines.
Yeah, that's why I'm using
Nikon.
Digicam Control.
Yeah.
But I haven't been able to find information about scripting for that. So that's where I'm at right now.
Okay. There's a couple other folks
Oh, sorry. I want to make sure that we address people whose hands have been up for quite a while. Richard, you've been like physically holding up your hand, which I appreciate. So I'm going in the order that I saw, and then Brian, if you can address JCRB, then Richard, and then let's do Paul. And it's less than 15 minutes to go. So just to give you guys a time's up.
All right, thanks. So just let me to finish off that list. So there a few other folks gave some suggestions in the chat there, Gary. I would suggest that, but I think the thing to do is, and as Laura was saying at the beginning, everybody's got some different equipment, and so your solution is probably going to end up being different. And so it's really important to just practice, right? Practice it and find out what's going to work best for your setup. And you can practice on the full moon. That's actually relatively close to the illumination level of the solar corona. So if you practice on the full moon, give yourself a chance to try out a variety of different settings and see what's going to work best for you. Okay, so JCRB, you're next.
So none of the software that exists. I used Eclipse Orchestrator on D750 in 17. But none of the software that exists talks to like modern cameras, and there's almost no way to actually do the sequence by script, but I can do it by hand, right? Because the time it will take to shoot the sequence by hand, will be very quick with one of these things. But does it matter when, because right, like I can just run through the sequence sets given the number of pictures. Does it matter when during the eclipse, therefore we run it, if it will take us, about 10 seconds to do the whole sequence? Because otherwise I'm going to leave the camera on its own auto bracketing, which can't produce the GS, but it will produce 1,000 pictures, right? So at some point in there, I can easily pause for 10 seconds and manually run the exposures. Does it matter when during totality, right?
I don't, and some other folks who maybe have more, because I also have an old camera myself, but so if any of you who have newer cameras can answer that, my sense is that with the newer camera, you ought to be able to set the bracketing in such a way that you can do the variation in exposure times.
Yeah, but you can't get
very
this.
similar to
There's so many. There's so many, right? So you can only get 9 different brackets, right? So I can cover the whole range, but only with nine sets. Now, it's unclear why the bracketing has to be that fine, given the dynamic range on the camera, that there's actually anything to be gotten from it. But it's not possible to do, 20. It won't bracket through that many different stops. It'll do one EV brackets, right, or half EV brackets or whatever, but it won't do 20 at half a stop.
I would say one thing about the two pieces of software, Maestro and Orchestrator. Maestro, Xavier said he's planning to have a release sometime in the end of February, early March. That might cover some new cameras.
But that's
And
Mac only.
yeah, and Fred Sprunges, who does Orchestrator, he's constantly updating. So you should ping him and see if he has the plans to add it.
Yeah, but again, these I used Orchestrator before, and the issue there is the speed of its communication over the USB, right? You could shoot some small number over the USB, shooting out of the internal bracketing, right? It'll shoot as many as you want, basically. It'll go full speed nonstop, right? So the number of things is, the number of images that can be gotten is so much smaller with Orchestrator than it is just running on the internal intervalometer.
Not if you use a serial trigger port. There's a serial trigger port you can get to trigger it. Chris is holding one up. You can get a serial trigger port.
I don't think I'm gonna get one of those.
I put a link. I put a link in the chat. There is it's Cable Warehouse or something on eBay, and I just picked up 2 more of these. I now have 5 to run all my cameras because reasons. Anyway, what it is, this is a little optoelectronic trigger, and you connect it with a USB adapter to serial, and then this goes to your trigger cable, which is a 3.5 millimeter, plugs in on this end, and the 2.5 goes into your camera. You have the 3-pin. All you need.
10 pin.
The what?
10 pin.
Is it a Canon or Nikon?
Nikon. It's 10 pin.
Forget Nikons. I don't know.
Yeah, well, sorry. Yeah.
There's probably a solution for Nikons, but this is for Canon. So you should still be able to get an adapter that goes from 3.5 millimeter to whatever the Nikon is. Okay, because it's basically just an extension. So you might be able to do it that way. And what this does in Orchestrator, you can do, like for example, for mine, I've got a Canon 5DS, and I can trigger everything from 1/8,000th of a second all the way to 3 seconds, and I can do the whole thing in just under 7 seconds, and then I can repeat over and over and over again for the entire duration of the eclipse. So in my location, I should be able to get about, I think, between 22 and 25 total sets of brackets, and and each one is like, I think 12 images per set. So just using this thing, I can trigger that. But with the USB issue, yeah, it's the USB controller cannot send a signal to the camera more than once a second to take the image. And I had that issue last time around. And what's worse is if you have multiple cameras and one computer, it round robins it. So if you have, like, I had I had 3 cameras last time, and it round robin to each camera instead of setting the triggers all together.
Well, they
So-
say any more than 2 cameras become a problem.
Yeah,
Even though they
that's
say support 4, they say anything more than 2 is a problem.
that's why I'm
Xavier
borrowing
and Fred
I'm
said
borrowing 6 laptops from work. So I will have 1 laptop per camera. I don't have to worry about that issue. All I have to do is worry about space on a desk. But this is how you get faster exposures, or faster triggers for
But
the
you still need the
exposures.
software to even recognize the camera in the first place, which currently Orchestrator doesn't recognize the new Nikons.
Yeah, sorry.
It doesn't even see that they exist.
Ping Moonlight Technologies, that's Fred Sprunges, his name is. Fred is the guy who created Orchestrator. And ping him, and he may be having it planned to be added to an update. He gets lots of requests, but he's a one-man show. Because Daystar Technologies, he also owns Daystar, the filter company, and that's his company as well. So he's busy during the day with Daystar, and in the evenings, Orchestrators is what he works on. So
I put in the link for Eclipse Orchestrator.
Thanks, Chris. And I'll notice that Rob also put in an additional information there about Astro DSLR, which maybe is another solution. I see Dar's letting me know that we got about 8 minutes left. So
Oh, that was a couple minutes ago. 6 minutes left.
6 minutes. Okay, Paul, let's see if we can deal with your question.
I'll make this really brief because some of it's, can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. I don't have video tonight. Sorry about that. I just have a question. I did the 2017 Eclipse pretty successfully, but I'm just wondering, and we were kind of addressing some of it in terms of the software that we could use on a laptop and drive the the progress there. What is there, like a gold standard? Is there kind of a recommended based on your guys' experience? What's kind of the for go-to? And I can use a Mac or a Windows-based software either. I'm just wondering what's kind of the top of the list.
Well, it sounds like I know that I was looking in the chat here, and so we've seen a few different comments about latest versions of Mac OS, for example, are not going to work with the Maestro.
Maestro needs a really old version of the Mac OS, and it needs to be the old Intel version of the Mac. He hasn't rewritten it for the new Macs. But Eclipse Orchestrator will run on any Windows machine.
On any Windows machine.
Yes, but he only supports, I believe he only supports Canon cameras.
Is it possible to do emulation? Because that's one way to get around when you've got too new of a software, is if you can run an emulator of a previous version of Mac OS. I don't know.
No,
that's possible to do in Windows more than I don't know, but
you can't. No, because the underlying technology of the CPU has changed from now it's an ARM processor, whereas the old one was an Intel-based processor, and it won't. They're not compatible at all.
So in Windows, I'm wondering about. I know in Windows you can run Mac emulators, right? Or is it the you can run Windows emulators on Macs, right?
But it's questionable. Its reliability is questionable. But if you go with Orchestrator, you can run on a Windows machine. It's Maestro is where you have to have an old machine, an old version of a Mac, the Intel-based Macs, on Mojave, which is an ancient operating system.
Right, and then Rob had suggested that Astro DSLR is a good option for Macs.
I'll check that out, guys. Thank you. I'm still noodling around with different software that's available out there and testing them. So
Astro DSLR has said they're enhancing it to allow for more bracketing photos. They said they have a new version coming out in March.
Nice. Thanks, guys. That's all.
Thank you, Paul. And then Chris, I've seen your hand up then here. What can we do for you, Chris?
So I will not only be using DSLRs, but I also have the Astro cameras. So I've got the ASI 2600. I've got two monochrome 183 sensors and one color 183 sensor. So all of it will be hooked up and doing whatever. The software that I've been messing with, well, I use SharpCap. I know Nina exists. I haven't touched Nina. If anyone's used it, is there anything that will let me do brackets for the Astro cameras? Because they're cooled. I'm probably going to get better results on DSLR. I can do all my processing pretty easily in my software. So, but I can program it into SharpCap. SharpCap doesn't let me do sub 1 second exposures and set up a bracket for that. Does anybody have any solutions?
Any deep sky software will be able to run your Astro images.
No, it can run it, but what I'm looking for is bracketing.
No, they don't support bracketing because you don't do bracketing in deep sky.
I understand that.
Yeah,
that's why I'm asking.
You can program. You can do some scripting with SharpCap to do your exposure like you want. SharpCap have some scripting capacity. Like Nina have. I did some tests with SharpCap and it's 10 times faster than Nina.
Okay, then if that's the thing, if it needs scripting, I'll do the scripting. I'll try to find time to do the scripting.
Jacques, is the scripting that you have that you've already experimented? Is that something that you could share in the Discord with?
I didn't create the script for SharpCap. The test I did, it was 1 minute, 1 second, 1 millisecond exposure, just to compare Nina and SharpCap, and it was about 500 with SharpCap and maybe 30 with Nina. It was just to compare, but yes, I will develop the program, the script, and share it with you. Also, I found a little program with CHDK, Canon Hack something, because I plan to use my little camera. It's a power shot, and it has a good zoom on it. And let's go. In 2017, that's the only camera I had. But we can update the firmware and do some bracketing like we want. And there's a version also for the Canon DSLR for that. So I will share these script with you when it's finished.
Okay, thank you. I'm afraid it's time for us to close the breakout rooms. If you guys want to carry any questions over to the main room, I'm going to close them now. I think we have 60 seconds, please.
And Dar, do you know if the chat in here is savable?
It should be saved, yeah?
Okay, great, because there was a lot of good info that people put in that I want to make sure gets captured.
I know.
Thanks, everybody.
Remember to leave the room, not the Zoom.
It has been created. That must mean that Dar is back.
I am back.
Welcome back. Did you stop recording?
I stopped recording the chat room and I'm back in the main room.
Awesome. Thank you, Dar. Thank you for the swap too.
No worries. It worked out. Actually, we have a quick Zoom question if anyone knows the answer. Do the individual chats from each breakout room get recorded with the recording? Does anyone know?
They
The chats
should.
do get recorded, yeah.
Yeah. And you'll get a text file after you save at the end when you close down the recording. And when
Perfect.
the recording is finished, you'll get a text file with the chats in there.
Perfect. That's all those beautiful links you guys put in there. We want to make sure they're all preserved.
Okay, we're back in the main chat.
I think we're all back. All right, Laura, you want to reconvene us for the closing?
Yeah, so I know that so I think Dave in our group had put the Discord link in there. Thank you, Dave. But I'm not sure everyone saw it. So can
I'll grab
Hannah
another one.
put that in there again for people? That would be great. And there we go. Dave's putting it in. Great. Awesome. And so I just thought we could do a little share out with each of the groups. So I will model this and then I will call on Brian and then I will call on Jeffrey to do a little summary of what we each talked about. So in our group, we talked about kind of the change. I had a lot of folks who had done the 2017 photography and are now doing the 2024 photography for the Eclipse Megamovie. And so we learned about some new cameras people have. There's a question. In fact, maybe you could put I forget your first name, but Miss Morgan, if you can put your question about your camera in the chat, and then maybe also in Discord later. You could do that. And then people were also asking, they just joined. And so they were asking where they can find information about how to get their camera set up, what they need. They were trying to decide what mounts to use. So we were talking about some people aren't going to be using the 3D printed mounts that we sent them. So they're going to be, they might ship those to other people. So we were talking about how to make a 30-degree mount, a 40-degree mount with a wedge. So that's possible and can happen. So, and then we discussed also that you can find information on our website, the photography guide, while it's meant for those of you who are STAR members, those of you who are not in the STAR membership, you also can use it as a good guide for what you can pick and choose what you want out of that. But it kind of gives you some of the things that you need to think about anyway. So, and that is under resources on the website, and then under STAR, if you click on the STAR metadata there's a little square you click on, you'll find those files. So that's a summary, a quick summary. We also talked about a few other things, but all right, Brian, you want to give a summary of what you all discussed?
I can try. Ours was a discussion that I think a lot of people's questions were around kind of specifically software solutions to being able to get the kind of requested sequence of exposures, and that there's a lot of difficulty with certain mismatches between software and versions of operating systems and versions of cameras and the camera software. And so there was a lot of ideas and troubleshooting that was being passed around to try to help folks, get as close to that what did you call it? The golden
Gold standard.
The gold standard bracket, right? Which it sounds like is a lot of people are finding to be a difficult standard to to match.
Yes.
And so yeah, one of the messages I tried to give folks was that not to break the bank or or anything in order to try to reach that, to do the best you can with what you've got. To make sure that you test, as much as you can ahead of time, use the full moon to test out your different solutions and see if you're getting, results that you're happy with. And I also sent the message to, whatever you do, make sure that it's all, you're happy with the automation ahead of time, so that during the eclipse, you do not find yourself fiddling with the equipment. That during the eclipse, you are present for the actual event itself.
Yes, thank you for emphasizing that point and emphasizing that we do recognize this gold standard is not possible for most people. And we put it out there so that you could figure out what you can do with your camera. So I'm just going to say this again because it's worth repeating, and I'm glad that Brian was saying that to you. So that's why we've given at the very end of the photography guide some an example of what kind of modifications. I know some of you are going to have to go to brackets, and if your camera does 5 or 9 brackets, then just take a bunch of brackets for the whole Eclipse, and that will be great. And then sit back and enjoy. So yes, we recognize that when we invite the public to do this, this is part of the game, and we will get scientifically relevant data from you all, and we're very excited about that fact. And we know because we got some really great data in 2017. So, okay, thank you, Brian. All right, Jeffrey, what did you all discuss in your mount?
We have a couple of individuals that were having issues with their Skywatcher Star Adventure GTI mounts that I'm going to try to help Flaxman see if I can do a little bit of research on that. But in the meantime, I requested Hannah to create additional channels in Discord that's mount specific. So if there's a mount that you're using that other people are using and you're having issues, just ping Hannah and she'll create a channel for you. And it looks like Amy has a Star Adventure that should love to see that in Discord as well. And I encourage, if you're using a similar mount to that and people have questions, I would encourage the more experienced people to help the less experienced people so that they can become pretty proficient at using their mounts. We're also having one that's specific to our mount that's also there. That'll be kind of like a general mount area. And I also made note of that that Hannah and I on Friday did film a video, and I edited it today for specific training on that, on our mount, on how to load it properly so it doesn't do one of those things where it gets top heavy and just does this.
Awesome.
So that was some of the stuff that we discussed. We also discussed using the sundial method to find true north. So I kind of pointed that out in the documentation that's there. It's probably a good idea to take a look at that, especially if you're finding your app isn't pointing you in the right direction. So that we have an alternative method that's pretty low tech and should generally work for our volunteers.
Great. That sounds great. And I do want to just, it turns out there is an app that really does a nice job pointing true north and you don't have to be on the internet. So we'll be sharing that out. Thanks to one of our volunteers for sharing that out. And okay, great. Any last minute? So we'll I'll take a few more questions. We're going to close out at 6 tonight. And then when's our next, Darlene? Can you tell everyone when our next meeting is? We have it on the calendar. It's March something. What did we pick? March 26th, maybe? Hold on.
Give me 1 second, sorry.
No, that's fine. We'll find it here for you. It's March 25th. Yes, March 25th, 5 to 6 p.m. Pacific time. Office hours are from 4 to 5. So office hours are really debugging problems. These meetings also tend to be debugging problems, troubleshooting. We're also going to have some social hours where you can practice and watch someone practice. He did that, Tran did that on Saturday, and we recorded it. So he said we could post it. So then you can kind of watch that, just so you get a good sense of kind of what that looks like. He started from the beginning pretending it was the eclipse. So we'll post that, and then we'll send those out. Anything else I have missed telling our volunteers, Hannah or Darlene?
May I offer
Nothing I
suggestion?
can think of. Sure. Yeah.
Between now and the next, 48 days, right? Practice, 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 and practice. On the
Yep.
moon, on the sun, with your filters on your camera or whatever, just practice. Get it to the point that you can put this together, get it running, tracking, imaging, without even thinking about it. Because on the day of, you'll be panicked, and if you don't have it as muscle memory, stuff will go wrong for you. So practice, and get a big plastic sheet on the ground. When you have it all working and everything's connected and it's running perfect, take every piece off, lay it on that piece of plastic, and that piece of plastic or the sheet of plastic or canvas, everything on there goes with you, because you don't want to turn up there and be missing a cable.
Yes, and speaking of that, we're going to create a checklist, both a checklist in time as well as a packing list. So that, because I was starting to practice myself and I thought, wait, I need a packing list. So we'll share those out too. So those of you who already have a packing list, if you want to share those with us to get started, that would be helpful. You don't need to at all.
Yeah. I was also thinking about making a travel suggestion channel in the Discord, like suggestions for traveling with your gear, if you're flying, if you're driving, that kind of thing. Because I will be flying with my camera, and I have no idea. I imagine I should put it on a carry-on, or should I check it? Probably shouldn't check it. Yep.
We're definitely
Don't
talking
take your
about
camera.
that. Well,
Do
we're
not
talking
check your camera.
Not check
Always
your
carry
camera.
on.
Don't check it.
Lenses, batteries, all in the carry-on.
There's a reason
We're
why
going
I'm
to
driving
Mexico.
1,500 miles.
Oh my goodness. You are
Especially
dedicated,
international
sir.
travel. Anyone going to Mexico or Mazatlan with me? We have a special channel on Discord, especially for that. How to pack
Yes.
and bring our gear.
Mm-hmm. And on the day of, we have, I know we're a little over time, but we have several different voice channels. So I'll try and put a guide together for voice channels so that you can use them. But what you can do is you can jump in a voice channel for Mexico, and that way anyone in Mexico can be in the voice channel with each other. You can, check in with each other, say, oh, it's starting. Oh my gosh, it's so beautiful. And just hang out with each other while you're also photographing.
I won't have data. Where I'm setting up, they don't even have high-speed internet in the town yet.
That's fair.
Yeah, a lot of us will be in the area. Well, not a lot. I mean, there's some pretty big cities under the path this time, but the center line is pretty still rural.
Yeah.
So,
Gatesville communicates with carrier pigeons still.
exactly. And so bring your batteries.
Do carrier pigeons deliver cameras?
Maybe.
Depends on where it grips it.
That's right. Okay, so we'll officially end, just like last time. I will stay. This time I'm just staying for an extra 15 minutes, but we'll officially stop the recording. And thank you. I don't think I can say thank you enough, but I will try. Thank you. And I'll just keep saying thank you. So if you want to just stick around for 15 minutes, you're welcome, but you also can just come to one of our social hours, get on Discord. You can email the listserv, lots of ways to communicate. So great seeing you all tonight. We'll see you next time.
Have a good night.
Bye,
Thanks, everybody.
Good night.
Bye.